Today we're going to be talking about how us as a publisher can help with UA strategy, and if you are a publisher, you might learn a thing or two about enhancing your stack through direct relationships. This is broadly what we will cover. In addition to what I just said here, we're going to go over a little bit what's a strong advertiser-publisher relationship look like, and then what does it mean for the ecosystem that we sit in? Great. A little bit of background about us, since nobody besides Igor knows who we are. We are a 60-year-old privately held company. Yes, we have been around for a long time. We were founded in the 50s as a direct-to-consumer magazine seller in the United States. To this day, we are still headquartered in the greater New York City area, but as you can imagine, because customer needs, our needs, business changes over the course of 50 years. We moved our business, one, from analog and being literally in people's mailboxes to one that is very much online. And if you grew up in the United States or ever visit the United States and say the two words prize patrol, people will immediately know Publishers Clearinghouse because our claim to fame for the last 50 years has been giving away massive sums of money in large checks. As you can see right here. In 2018 alone, we gave over $300 million away to a large number of winners. It is what generally attracts people to our properties. People come to Publishers Clearinghouse to win things, and when they are in the process of winning things, they play games, they read articles, they buy things from us, they look at partner content, they watch videos. It is a great way for somebody in the United States sitting at their computer to spend 10, 15 minutes of their day away from their busy life and having fun and enjoying something. Little bit about what our audience looks like. We're all US. So if you're outside the US, you can't win. If you're inside the US, you can. It creates a very interesting audience, a very interesting demographic, especially from an advertiser standpoint. We do skew female. Most of our audience has kids who are in high school or middle school, their moms, right? Taking time out of their day. Generally, it's head of household, income over $50,000, skews, anywhere from 75 to 80, really. And most of these people are homeowners. And when we survey our group, you have generally what we, call sort of an audience in the middle of the United States, right? These are people, they're head of households. They like their pets, they're heavy credit card users, they shop at Walmart and Home Depot. And again, from an advertiser perspective, this is very important because these are buyers. They're people that have a lot of intent, they have disposable income, they spend a lot of time online, and most importantly, they're consumers, right? A little bit about our experience, just before we jump into this, right? Why am I up here talking about how a publisher like Publishers Clearinghouse can help an advertiser through a unique integration? It really starts with our experience and what it does for our audience. So the first thing everybody sees when they come to Publishers Clearinghouse is this relatively ugly sign-up form. And I know you're thinking, the first thing somebody sees when they land on our site is an arduous sign-up form where I have to put in my name, my street address, my email, and confirm it. If we don't know where you live, you can't get your check. And for an advertiser, this is really important because everybody who is on our site is verified. They have a verified profile. We know who they are. We know where they live, right? This significantly cuts down on fraud, and it really gives us great data and feedback about who our players are and why they are there. So it all starts right here. From there, what are people doing? They're entering sweepstakes, right? People want to win money. That is why they are there. They buy products. They scratch off scratch cards. They watch videos, right? This is part of the entertainment journey that is on PCH. And I know what you're thinking looking at these. This looks like we just went back to the 90s, maybe even earlier. Tried and true, well tested. It's what our audience is receptive to. We've built a product for them over the course of the last 50 years, and it still looks like that. Oops. So quick rundown here as I've gone through the background on PCH. Does everybody have an idea? We're, again, small but engaged group, but everybody have an idea of what we're doing here? What's going on, why people are on PCH, who we are, a little bit of background? Good. I know it's one of those things. New company, never heard of us, guy from New York, standing on stage, 30 minutes to beer. There's a lot to consider here, but glad we have the background. So, relatively large audience, right? Millions of monthly actives. People are spending a considerable amount of time here, right? The mechanisms of sweepstakes, that element of engagement, that's really important. I think if I told everybody that I'm about to give away this Yeti, somebody's going to sit up in their chair and look a little bit more awake. Right here. Igor, please, pass it back. That's why people spend 8+ minutes on our properties, okay? They're buying billions of dollars from products from us. And on the advertising side, our apps are downloaded a considerable amount of times every year. Large, expansive audience on mobile, large, expansive audience on desktop. All right, so what does this mean? Why am I here? What are we doing at White Nights? Why is this a talk, right? We're US only audience in a space where there's a lot of competition, and it's a very valuable audience for people, right? We have a big digital footprint, right? We have millions of monthly active players on mobile and desktop. In addition to that, we spend tens of millions of dollars a year on customer acquisition. We run expansive television campaigns, very large advertiser. This means that we have a very large advertising technology stack. That's not just the monetization, that's analytics, segmentation, tracking, and more. And that's something that's been built out and becomes more robust day by day. And what does this mean for advertisers, right? Hundreds of millions of impressions, right? Millions of installs come from PCH. One of the things I like to do at conferences like this is I always say, have you heard of PCH? People say no, and then I say, have you checked your publisher report? And they say, oh, wow, that's a lot of volume. Yeah, we have a lot of impressions. We have a pretty big audience. A lot of people spend a lot of their media on PCH. They don't know it. So this is how we impact the ecosystem, both as an advertiser ourselves, how we interact with advertisers as a publisher. This is, broadly speaking, what we do for people who know that they're touching PCH in some way, right? They're getting a fairly large, fraud-free audience. Everybody's signed in. Everybody's verified, right? Great audience reach. Great ad formats. Video, playable, high-quality interstitial, very effective banner, measurable results. This is what people generally see on Publishers Clearinghouse. This is generally what our audience engages with. It gives you a really good idea of our demographic and reinforces a lot of the demographic information that I was talking about earlier, right? The vast majority of ads that are shown across PCH come from social casino. Behind that, broadly, other gaming. Gaming in general makes up about 70% of the performance ads that somebody will see. There's a little bit of brand thrown in there and then some shopping, right? Some secondhand shopping, some interesting stuff there as well. So this is broadly what people are seeing, and like I said, the real important thing about this is it reinforces the audience and what people are engaging with when they're on Publishers Clearinghouse. So what does this do, right? We've started to build a business where we interact directly with advertisers. We have a considerable ad tech stack where we have major third-party integrations. What does this do, right? It creates actually a fair amount of challenges, which is why people like myself are here and why we have a growing team, right? There's heavy competition across our inventory. We generally see some unstable economics, right? Whether we're working with advertisers directly, or they're coming through third parties, or we're just working mainly with third parties, there can always be more stability and growth in economics, which is very important. For our advertisers, if you're buying through a pipe, there's very little differentiation, right? There's nothing that you're getting coming through a third-party pipe that your competitor or another advertiser isn't, right? Same ad formats, same place, right? Because of the heavy competition, relatively unstable economics, for an advertiser, it usually results in limited scale. And the diluted value aspect of this is really interesting because it's on both sides, right? As an advertiser, wanting to get more from a publisher, if I only have one way to access that inventory, I have a hard time discerning the value. Maybe I know it's there, maybe I think it's there, but I can't get more of it. And then as a publisher, what it does for us is we're relatively divorced from the people that see the value in us. If you're buying Publishers Clearinghouse through a third party, you don't interact with me. We don't have a direct line of communication. So these are the questions that we generally get, right? People come to us, how can I get more from Publishers Clearinghouse? How can I get more inventory? How can I see more of your audience? Can I target the entire audience, right? I mentioned segmentation. We have a lot of very powerful analysis and segmentation tools that we leverage to really segment our audience, and that very much impacts what advertisers get out of us. Get a lot of this. And then how do I get a better return, right? Everybody's very return focused, everyone's very performance focused. So we sort of went back to the lab and we thought, what aspect of our business, what aspect of our advertising units, what aspects of our technology, what aspects of our appeal can we leverage to start to answer some of these questions and better work with advertisers to create solutions that enhance them and their businesses. So, any guesses? How do we do something that's different, that differentiates? I'll give away a water bottle. Any guesses? No? It's 4:30, it's okay. What we've started to do is create very unique, highly visible ad units that integrate advertisers into the core experience of the app. Okay? And what this does is, it does a few things, right? Everybody sees this. It's in front of everybody. It's highly visible. It's very engaging. The message is on brand. We are telling our audience who trusts us that we have an advertising partner that we want them to engage with. The nice thing about this is the way that we've been able to do it is we've been able to engineer it on a performance basis. So a lot of times people come to us, we're a big publisher, we have a big audience, a big reach, whether it's a brand or a performance advertiser, and they say to us, you must be doing this on a CPM or some sort of flat rate. No. We understand that the people that we are talking to in 2019 are performance-driven. They're performance advertisers. They want results, right? We're building this with performance in mind. I sort of call this the key ingredients because this isn't just for PCH. This is for any publisher that an advertiser can work with and engage in this type of activity. You need a real audience. One of the reasons why this works on PCH is, as I explained now about 10 minutes ago, we have an audience that comes back to us every day for a fairly lengthy period of time. They know what they're getting. They have a bond with us. We talk to them. We send them email. We do things on social media. There's a deep, deep bond between us and our audience. That's a key piece of this. It is hard to do a deep integration with a publisher that doesn't have that, right? And you can think of some instances where someone has a large audience, but it's not a very well-engaged audience. From a productization standpoint, anytime you can sit at the top or outside of the waterfall, obviously that's crucial, right? Sitting outside of competition. So everything I just showed you on the past two slides, that's not mediated in a highly competitive waterfall. That's unique, right? The integration opportunity no one else can get. And then you have to be open to relationships. There's a lot of publishers that aren't. We just started this. I've been at Publishers Clearinghouse for a year and a half. Before that, can't say we were even open to direct advertiser relationships, right? Everything went through third parties. That's how we generally monetized, right? A robust waterfall. So what does this do? What feedback do we receive? And this really is very much centered on us, but it could be any publisher that's doing something like this, right? We are amplifying the visibility of an advertiser, right? We are putting an advertiser in front of everybody. They're not stuck in a waterfall. They're not stuck in a place where they're mediated. They're not stuck in a place where they're dealing with competition. Everybody sees them. To point two there, it's something that someone can't buy just on an open market. You have to pick up the phone. You need to hammer out a deal, work out something that's creative. The nice thing about this as well, and again, not just Publishers Clearinghouse, but all publishers who would be doing something like this and advertisers, leverage the core identity of what that publisher is, right? We are actively using our sweepstakes element. We're using our core driver of why people are there. We're integrating our advertisers into that, and it creates a very, very powerful and engaging message. The nice thing about this, and this is feedback that we've received, is it's good for us and it's good for our partners, right? We measure things on eCPM. They measure things on return on ad spend. Thumbs up on both sides, right? We get to keep doing stuff like this. So you can probably imagine that this isn't foolproof, right? This is something that also creates some challenges. There are questions, new questions that arise. So how do we get around those, right? One thing that I can see, and again, broadly for us, but all publishers, is we need to think of new ad units, right? We need to think of more creative ways as demand increases to deliver. We need to think about pricing, right? I mentioned performance pricing earlier. How can we do this on a CPA, right? I mentioned our considerable e-com business. How can we push people further and further down the funnel, right? If we can provide that type of value, we're in a good position, and so are our partners. And then finally, a lower barrier to entry. And I know that sounds a little strange, but one of the big challenges in addressing our partners' concerns is how do we actually give them something tangible that, one, doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and two, take months to integrate. And to date, we've been doing larger, more expansive integrations that take a considerable amount of time. They take a considerable amount of effort, and full transparency, make us a large part of their advertising budget. This is going to be important in 2019. How do we roll this out to a larger set of partners, right? How do we make this more tangible for everybody, really? So, summing it up, pushing it back, going back to our deep breath earlier. You missed our deep breath. I'm sorry. We'll do it again at the end. I think why we're doing this comes from a few places, right? We saw this last year. We saw it for the year before that. I'm sure the Facebook and Google people out there wouldn't like to hear it, and if they're in this room, I'm sorry, but there is demand for inventory elsewhere, right? There's demand for unique integrations. Much of that is driven by the fact that anybody can go to a pipe and get a fair amount of volume, a fair amount of inventory, and it's become the standard, right? Couple that with concerns about fraud, and you're sort of like, man, where do I go, right? And this gets to the crux of why we're doing what we're doing. Folks like us who have a highly engaged, unique, valuable audience of decision makers that spend a considerable amount of time on property present a very interesting opportunity, right? If you're looking outside of Facebook, if you're looking outside of Google, right? If you're looking outside of your traditional ad network partners, we're an interesting play. And then for publishers, right, this still needs to focus on performance. It doesn't mean that we can get away with not working with people on a performance basis, and it means that we have to think of solutions. And then finally, picking up the phone, right? I think in 2019, we all can safely say one of the great things about conducting business these days is you can do everything via Skype. Everything is highly digital. Less and less of a need to get in front of people, to talk to people. This is where relationships are crucial, and it goes back to the differentiation element and the unique aspect of what we're doing, right? If you want to sit outside of a waterfall, if you want to get all of an audience, if you want to see something that a competitor doesn't, that another advertiser doesn't, that relationship is very crucial. And then finally, questions. Best question gets the last water bottle.